Are you a hardworking local business owner striving for success online? There is help. Welcome to the Smarter Local Marketing Podcast, featuring candid conversations and inspiring stories of online success. Now, here's your host.
Yes, this is James Martell, and I am your host for the Smarter Local Marketing Podcast, and I'm very excited that you've decided to join us today. In this episode, I'm being joined by Dr. Cale Copeland from Victoria Family Chiropractic, and we're going to talk about what I feel is probably the perfect marketing mix for the typical business. And I don't mean typical in a bad way. I mean typical in such a way that you're looking for clients or patients or customers to come through your door, and you're looking to the internet as a possible source for those people. Now, what I'd like to talk with Dr. Cale about today is what we've done for him recently. We've been working together for probably, I would guess, 4 or 5 years off and on. And most recently, we met again a few months back and helped Dr. Cale with a website, and more importantly, helped get the traffic flowing and the phone ringing and new patients into his office. So I want to talk to Dr. Cale about that. Now, before we do that, though, let me send out an invitation to you to subscribe, if you haven't done so already, to the Smarter Local Marketing Podcast, where you will learn each week how to attract all of the local customers you'll ever need. And you can subscribe to the podcast by simply clicking on the subscribe button at the top of the page or in the left-hand column, and then add your email address, and then you will receive new episodes each week as they are added to the website. So simply, again, click on the subscribe button to add your email address, and new episodes will begin arriving every week. Now, Dr. Cale, I want to take a moment and just thank you for joining us today. I know you're a busy guy, and you're actually in the office today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure for being here, James.
It's good to catch up. I know we had a chance to talk on a podcast. It's got to be 2, maybe even 3 years ago. And you and I have been doing some work together off and on. I know initially when you'd called, the internet was not something you were tackling at that point. How long ago was that now? Do you recall?
I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. It was a while ago.
Yeah, how time flies.
Holy moly.
Yeah. At the time, you had a website, of course. It wasn't doing much in the way of bringing new business through the door. So one of the things we did for you back then was do some on-page SEO, or some search engine optimization, as they call it, to pull out the 3-letter acronyms, which I don't usually do. We basically tied these things up from a search engine point of view, and then that opened up the door to bring you some new clients, or in your particular case, patients.
Yep.
And if I recall correctly, you were averaging around 16 per month back then. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that's probably about right. Yep.
And then over time, we didn't do much together, and as normal in any industry, in any business really, the competition started coming on strong in your area. Initially, there wasn't a lot of attention to the web by the other chiropractors in the local market, and we quickly moved you right to the top and put you in a position where you were getting, I would probably say, the bulk of the calls, or at least a fair chunk of them coming into the sites. But then we noticed that things started to slow down a little bit.
Yep. And
when we got back together, I went and had a look, and lo and behold, here are the competitors all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And we had to take a look at that. At that point, you and I had a good chance to dig through your website, and we kind of went through some things when we started talking a few months ago now. Give listeners a little bit of the lay of land where you were with regards to bringing new patients through the door.
Boy, I sure, like when I first met you, it was such a profound difference. It was actually shocking. There was a time when it was almost to the point where I couldn't even handle the volume. We were as busy as, actually to the point where it was beyond busy, like in a not healthy way. But it was great. And then, it slowed down a bit. And then we talked again about, what do we need to do to sort of get back to where we want to get to. Things had slowed down. I mean, it wasn't at that incredible peak, and I didn't really want to be at that peak. I wanted to be somewhere in between, and we were a bit below that. So then we met up, and I guess we talked about the website and search engine, and then there were some other things we talked about too. You'd been talking to me about podcasting and
some various things, some email marketing, and I had a chance to go through your website. We found some internal coding problems and probably a bit of malware in there that weren't helping with regards to ranking. And you decided, with a little bit of insight from me, to let's go ahead and bring the website up to the fresh new modern look. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when a site was built, there was a particular look to it. Today, there's a whole different look to websites. And we decided to go through your site top to bottom, and we ended up completely doing a overhaul on all areas of it. You added to it. You added a video gallery in there. You added a number of pages, and we've refreshed it. We rewrote a lot of the content, and we paid particular attention to making sure that you were ranking in the local results.
Yep.
And again, you are. And then the map results. And one of the conversations you and I had was basically there's a few areas I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Google results as they sit today. I want to talk a little bit about email marketing, talk a little bit about reviews and how those will work for you. I want to talk about your blog, and I want to talk about the podcast. But let's start off with the observations on how the Google results page, we call it the SERPs, which is a 4-letter acronym for Search Engine Results Page. And basically that's the page we land on when we do a Google search. So you and I were looking at that and noticing that there's quite a difference in the way it looks today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seemed that, years ago, first of all, there wasn't the competition. And so when you were locally ranked, if you were at the top, I mean, holy smokes, you're getting a lot of calls. And I don't recall there being a ton of advertisements or, anyway. But it seems like nowadays, I guess things have changed a bit. I'm a bit of a dinosaur. I use my little MacBook Air here, but I think most of the people are now looking on their smartphones when they're looking for a chiropractor or, whatever they're looking for, some sort of a service. And because Google's changed things, I think now there's when you're looking for a chiropractor, there's 4 paid ads that are above the natural search rankings. And so when you're on a smartphone and you're scrolling down, it's more of a landscape view, so sort of a longer width view, but on your smartphone, it's a long view. And so 4 paid ads is really massive. So it's almost like if you're looking on a smartphone, all you're seeing is advertisements, I think. And I think that's what you and I noticed, that there's been a huge increase in smartphone usage and of course the advertisements that made the local search rankings not as powerful, I guess, as they were.
It used to be, if you recall, all those paid ads used to be in the right-hand column over to the far right.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
And then you'd get the odd single ad across the top. Once in a while, you'd get 2. The other difference in the paid ads is back then, they looked like an ad. Like they clearly were an advertisement. Probably, I'm really only talking the last few years.
Yeah, we're only talking like 3-4 years, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, the numbers used to be, if you had a ranking in the number 1 position in Google, in the natural free results, you would get 7 times more click-throughs than having a number 1 position in the paid ads. So even if you bought the ads, you're still the vast majority of traffic would come to the natural search result.
Right.
So with that, and then the other thing you mentioned is smartphones, and that's really happened really quickly as well. 3-4 years ago, there was probably, I would guess, 20% of the people would find you on their smartphone.
Yeah.
Whereas today, statistically, because I know we've had it looked at the paid ads, 72% of the people that click on your ads are on their phones.
Wow.
And that's amazing. And the threshold of people accessing the internet from a smartphone or a tablet has far surpassed desktops and laptops now.
Isn't that amazing?
So, and as you said, when you're looking at it on your phone, the first 4 ads or the first 4 listings that actually look a lot more like a natural search result now are ads.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's been a big play with Google, and I know you do really well with, is the map results. That's another thing that plays into the phones, because a lot of people, when they're looking at the results on their phones, there's a big map there as well. And there's listings there as well. So now there's basically the 3 types of listings. You got the paid search results, you've got the map results, and then you've got the natural search listings. And the natural traffic now, or the natural listings, are at the very bottom of the other 2.
Yeah, I think the map is actually another really big one as well.
Yeah, so in your particular case, we've got you in the position number 1, 2, or 3 for all of the top keywords that matter to you most. In fact, your most search keywords, you're number 1. In the map results, you're number 1 or number 2. And then in the paid results, the nice thing about the paid search results, and you and I kind of worked this out together, we decided we're only going to run your ads, and Google gives us this flexibility, when you're open.
Correct.
So there's no point in running ads on a Friday evening at midnight, or 4 a.m. on a Monday morning, or on a Saturday or Sunday if you're not open and nobody there to answer the phone, because they're probably just going to go on to the next one to find somebody who is open.
That's correct. Yeah.
Google, we have it set up so they just only display your ads during the times that you're open. So now with this recent setup of the new website, reworking the search results, adding in a blend of some paid ads, which I want to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. How has the traffic gone in the last, say, month or so?
Yeah, it's been up significantly. In fact, we just had we had one of our best months. I mean, I've been in practice for 12 years, and I think we might have had our second best month ever was in January, just this last January. So it's been huge. So it's been phenomenal. And in February has been busy too. So it's been terrific.
That's great. Always love to hear that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So let's talk about the Google ads for a moment, because again, as I said, my philosophy has always been get the natural traffic and get the map results. And normally that's been plenty. But since the reconfiguring of the results page and the more dominant positioning of the paid ads now, it's forced us to look at that. And I know Google's done that. They're in business to make money, and that's totally fine. And they do a fantastic job of driving traffic. But it's always a little bit difficult to say, oh, I don't want to do advertising. And I know you were a little apprehensive to it. I always have been.
Yeah.
But with the Google results and the way that you actually had a goal, you wanted to get to a certain number of patients per week.
Yep.
And then you wanted to be able to be in a position, and I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, because you're thinking of bringing in not a partner, but another chiropractor into the office.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a way that, okay, can I bring in more patients if I need to?
Yeah.
We looked at the Google ads to basically make up the difference between where you are with the new patients coming through the door from the natural and the map results, and plumping it up by engaging in some paid ads. And I know we set the budget for the paid advertising at $25 per day. And again, that only runs Monday to Friday when you're open. How has that helped to bump it up where you needed to fill in any blanks?
Obviously, the results speak for themselves. So far, I think we had 44 new patients in January, and that's a big month. 10 new patients a week is optimal for me. I mean, in my profession, chiropractic, thank God, people tend to get better pretty quick. And so you some people do choose to see a chiropractor for wellness, but I would say probably the majority of people, they've got an issue they want resolution with quickly. And fortunately, I think chiropractic's really good at that. It gets people feeling better. So in my line of work, it's really important to have new patients coming in because people get better. It's been huge. And I guess we're, the nice thing about working with you is we're always sort of keeping an eye on things and seeing how it's going. But so far it's been fantastic, I have to admit. Yeah.
That's great. Another thing with the results page is if you do a search for your business name or anything related to it, Victoria Family Chiropractic, of course, Google My Business is now huge. And Google My Business is the big block of content that shows up to the right of the results for your local business. In your particular case, I just did a search for that in Google, and I see the 4 ads, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the natural results below it. There's no map results on this page because you have the Google My Business listing all set up. And over to the right, I see there's photos for your business. There's of course your address, your hours, your telephone number. There is also reviews. And reviews is another big thing that Google looks at to help determine where they should list you in the results. But of course, so do people. And when they're looking at the results and Google publishes the results front and center, the 5-star results or 4.9 out of 5, whatever it is, you see them side by side. And if somebody's got 2 reviews and somebody's got 22 reviews, and the 22 reviews are awesome, they're probably going to go with the guy with the most.
Yeah, I think so too, yeah.
And your particular case, I remember you didn't have a lot of reviews, but neither did anybody else because they weren't paying attention to it. And when I mean anybody else, I mean your competitors.
Yeah.
But now I'm looking at your listings. You've got 71 Google reviews, averaging 4.9. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
And that's powerful. So we know that reviews online are one of the deciding factors that people use to determine if they're going to reach out to you, call you, visit you. They look at your reviews. And in this particular case, you're rock solid. We supplied you with a great little handout that you used in the office and that we set up a link for you where people can click on a link, and automatically it wanders them all the way through the Google world, right to your Google My Business listing, and then pops open that 5-star review box so they can easily, in a minute or two, leave you a nice review. Yeah. But the other thing that we did is we helped you get your email marketing in order, which is always exciting to me, and we gave you a nice little email, and I watched you send it out. And I think at the time you were at 59 reviews. Yeah. And you popped out that email to your patients, and lo and behold, you quickly jumped from 59 to 68.
Yeah, it was quick.
Now, email marketing, sometimes it's a little bit to set up. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't have a list, or I haven't collected the emails from, my customers or my patients or my clients. But a lot of people have, and for those that haven't, there's ways to quickly build your list. But in your particular case, you already had, of course, an existing patient list.
Yeah.
You had been collecting emails, and I know you had, I think, Melissa, your wife, or maybe one of the girls in the office, data enter them all into the software.
Yeah, they do it every Tuesday.
What's been your experience with the email?
It's been good. I think it's valuable. We send out a promotion that we're offering or something's happening in the office, people mention that they got our email. So it's a good thing. I mean, the nice thing about the email too is that you can see how many people have opened the email. I know people get a lot of emails nowadays, but I think even if they just can glance and see, it goes into their mind. They see, Dr. Kale, they have a special for kids this month, or we're raising our fees, or whatever you need to sort of let your clients know about. I think it's valuable.
I do know you're also a very consistent blogger.
Except for last week, but yes.
Yeah. When you miss 1 week, you kick yourself. That's a good sign, because you've been blogging now on your website for how long? Even before I met you, you were blogging.
No, it was definitely you that got me into it, 100%.
Oh, was it?
No, It was you. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I've been blogging now for, oh my goodness. I'm going to say it's got to be 3 years. I mean, I was really resistant to blogging at the start because I thought, oh man, an extra thing on my plate. How long is this going to take? All this kind of stuff. But it's kind of one of those things I actually really enjoy. I mean, I feel like it keeps me fresh. I get to constantly research things. I'm always interested in learning more. I don't know if that's just who I am innately, or if it's, I want good content for the blog. So yeah, I enjoy it. It's fun.
Let me ask you a question of all the things that we're talking about here. Put your podcast aside. We'll talk about that in a moment. Yeah. How much time does it take you in a week to do your blog posts and whatever else you're doing online in the marketing area?
I'd say on average, probably an hour and a half.
Hour and a half?
Sometimes it's less. Sometimes if I come across a great recipe and I just pop up a recipe, I mean, it might be as little as, 20 minutes or half an hour. But on probably about an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Great. Okay, so let's talk about your podcast, because that's one of the latest things you and I have worked on together. I'm an avid podcaster. I've got about 800 episodes out there on the internet. I've got a few different shows, and wow. I love podcasting. And anybody that knows me knows I love podcasting. And I was talking to you about it for probably a couple of years, I would think.
You were for sure, yeah.
I was like, we got to get you a podcast. You need a podcast, James. Tell him again, he needs a podcast. Finally, and I know the timing wasn't right. I get that 100%. But you have a podcast now.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about what it is you do, the name of your show, and some of the rationale, who your guests are. Give the listeners a little bit of perspective on your show.
Sure. So the name of the show is called Back to Health, and the topic is kind of health, I guess, and that spills over into performance and well-being and all that kind of stuff. And so the goal is to talk to people who have some credibility, people that have been successful in life, whether that's in business, whether it's in athletics, someone who's lived an old, ripe age or whatever. And we just sort of talk about, hey, what's worked for you? And, and we just talk about health, talk about, what habits they have and what's worked for them. And it's fascinating. I mean, I've talked to gold medalists, world champions. I've talked to, incredible people. I'm working on episode number 13, and it's awesome. Again, I really, really enjoy the podcast. I think I enjoy the podcast more than the blog, actually.
It is quite something to get to know the guests, isn't it? When you get on the phone and you get on Skype and you interview them.
Well, it's a cool way of kind of getting really amazing information from somebody that you normally wouldn't get. You're not going to normally ask them about that kind of stuff because it's kind of not appropriate. But on a podcast, you can talk about it, and it's really cool.
How has your experience been finding your guests, and how receptive have they been when I imagine you send out an email to them and say, hey, I would like to get you on my podcast? How receptive have they been?
For the most part, pretty receptive. I mean, there's sometimes it's like instantaneous. Someone's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's schedule it right away. When you've got a connection with somebody, it's relatively easy, right? As long as they're not, intimidated about talking, it's fairly easy to set up. Some of the hard part is I'm trying to get some sort of significant people on the show, and it might be sort of cold calling. And so there's a bit of time that comes in with that and planting seeds. But that's probably the hardest part of podcasting, to be honest, is really just getting the guests. Other than that, it's easy and fun.
Now, one of the reasons I'm excited you have your show is because it's very forward thinking what you're working on there. And we're kind of laying the groundwork for stuff that's coming up as I see it. And I wouldn't think, how many other chiropractors in town have a podcast?
I don't know. I would be surprised if there's even one, to be honest, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be surprised.
Sure.
I would guess probably none. I bet on zero. And the reason I like it, I know you and I talked about this before we got on the show. One of the things that I would want to work on next is getting a press release out to your local media.
I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah, about your show, because that's just another way to get some promotion for yourself. And I know we talked about it, my wife and I, we've done a lot of local media work, and they're always looking for community-based, feel-good stories that they can share. And you've got names you can drop. You've got Ellison Rees, you've got Frank Musa. These are all people in your community. You're also the official chiropractor for the Victoria Vikes Hockey Club.
Yep.
So you're basically within the community. To me, this is going to be a natural thing for them to write a story on. If they do or not, that's another thing to see. But my gut feeling is usually pretty good, and that they will do a story on this locally for you, and that will help you build up your audience more so for your podcast, and of course, exposure for your business.
It's terrific.
Yeah, it gives you just another thing to look at. The other thing that as I mentioned to you, I put together an email for you that is designed to send out to your podcast guests after you're done with them. And it's a nice thank you email. Thanks them for being on the show. And then also provides them with a audio link for the episode, a headline, some descriptive text so they can add it to their website and get it in front of their audience as well, so which further promotes your brand in the local market, because a lot of these people have lists of their own. They have social media followings, and they like to promote. They've been on a podcast. That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's great.
We're coming up against the clock here. Any final thoughts on, maybe for listeners who are considering bringing their businesses to the next level? Where would you say they should focus their attention from what your experience has been with website, blog, podcasts, of course, Google natural results, map results, paid results? It can sound like a big undertaking. You and I started this most recent push, though. It's only been how many months now? Maybe 4?
That's a great question. I mean, all businesses are different. I mean, I know chiropractic. I don't know other businesses. I think, one thing I want to say, it's really nice to work with someone you trust and that you feel has your back. And I've been working with you for a lot of years, and it's made a huge difference. And that's one of the biggest things, is just having somebody that you can trust, that's knowledgeable. I guess you could say the same thing for healthcare. It's nice to have a dentist or a chiropractor that you trust and has been looking after you and your family for a long time. I think for my business, it seems that something that's attracting new patients is probably going to be the biggest thing. And it seems like the way it's going now, the best way is probably with paid advertising, I think. I'm sure things like, absolutely the podcast lends me credibility. It's possible that I'll get new patients from that as well. And they all contribute, the website, the search rankings, the Google reviews, the blog, the email, they all contribute. But probably for me, it's probably the paid advertising that seems to have made the biggest impact lately.
That's great. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that information. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. It's
thanks, James. Yeah,
it's been great to have you. And I appreciate having you as a client too. It's been great. And I call you a friend as well. We have talked a lot.
I agree. Yeah, thanks. And I feel very grateful as well. So
that's great. I appreciate that. We are already out of time. Now, if what we talked about here today makes sense to you, and you would maybe love to have in place a marketing strategy and maybe a team behind you that can help you get your goals for your business, do take a moment and reply to the email in which you received this podcast episode, and arrange a free 30-minute, no obligation, no pressure discovery call with us. We'll have a chat about your business. We'll talk about your goals, what you hope to accomplish. And then what we'll do is we'll run some reports. We have some amazing tools that we can use to identify exactly what needs to be done to get you from where you are currently to where you would like to go. So all you need to do, again, is reply to the email in which you received this episode and just say, free discovery call, please, and we will get on the phone and have a chat and see if there's a good match for us to work together to take your business to the next level. Also, again, if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to the podcast and you happen to be on the site, simply click on the subscribe button and enter your email address, and each week you will receive the latest edition of the Smarter Local Marketing podcast. And finally, if you've enjoyed this episode and you have a friend or associate that you know who would benefit from what we talked about here today, please do pass this episode along to them. I know they'll thank you for doing so. Dr. Cale, thank you again. And to our listeners, thanks for listening to another edition of the Smarter Local Marketing Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Smarter Local Marketing Podcast. If you would love to finally have in place a rock-solid internet marketing strategy that provides you with an excellent ongoing return on investment, then go ahead and reply to the email in which you received this podcast episode to arrange a free, no-obligation 30-minute consultation to discuss how a smarter local marketing program can be tailored to your specific needs and business. Again, simply reply to the email in which you received this podcast episode to arrange your free, no-obligation 30-minute consultation.
Right outside with my guitar.